cases we bring to the World Trade Organization. We have trade deals with every country on the planet, basically.
What you see is massive IP theft from China, from places like China.
But IP theft can't be.
Massive.
What do you mean, sure? No, nah, bro. He said, okay, Destiny said everything you said was wrong. And after he said everything you said was wrong, my ears kind of perked up because I'm like, okay.
Okay, so just to kind of reset, I actually agree with you more on tariffs. They are, like all taxes, ultimately paid by the consumer. You seem to have more of a libertarian stance on tariffs and kind of like a free trade. What do you think about the concept of that Bessent, Scott Bessent has shared so often that tariffs are actually a tool being used by the Trump administration to pursue free trade outcomes? Do you think that there's a utility in that?
I don't think the current administration believes in free trade. I don't think very many people right now, unfortunately, in the United States believe in free trade.
So if you guys don't know, this is a video about Destiny. He's a liberal podcaster and he's debating Trump supporters on Trump's tariffs. Destiny said, and I quote, Trump's tariffs are catastrophic and they're destroying the economy. And what's happening is that Trump supporters are going against him in a one-on-one debate and they have 10 minutes to debate. At the end of this discussion, let me know who you guys think won. Is it Destiny or is it Jorge? Which Jorge is a Trump supporter. Destiny is the one in the glasses and the black jacket. Let's get into it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that the underlying assumption right now, and I think we've heard it even a little bit today, is people very much believe in a kind of like a fixed pie economically, that if one person is winning, another person is losing.
Zero sum, yeah.
Yeah, and so if people want to talk about tariffs being used as a tool to pursue something, I mean, one, I would ask, what have we gotten from it? And then two, I would say, we're the United States of America. We don't need to use tariffs to pursue a thing. We can just have a conversation and figure that out.
Well, but I just find it interesting that a lot of Democrats will. By the way, one thing I love about the tariff thing is that Democrats have suddenly become super libertarian. Like suddenly they don't want any taxes, and I think that's great. I wish they had that same energy toward corporate taxes. I find it interesting that they want to increase corporate taxes, which, as you know, is ultimately paid by who? By workers, by people as well. It's not paid ultimately by corporations. There's different studies that look at that. Same grouping of studies that say that 90% of tariffs are paid by consumers, like you've said. But when we look at the actual outcomes, we do see that tariffs, especially in the case of European Union, I think Japan, Korea, they've allowed more access to markets. They've reduced regulatory. Are you familiar with the non-tariff barriers? Regulatory parity, market access, licensing.
So non-tariff barriers. It's not even we can't even bring that up because we haven't even begun those discussions. And honestly, I think that's where we absolutely not.
Yes, we did.
Absolutely
not.
I have read the stories. The European Union. We've got.
So Destiny, when you're having a debate or when someone's trying to tell you something, it's a little rude to just cut them off. It's best if you let them finish. But I do understand, you don't really like Trump. You hate Trump. Everyone who supports Trump or is conservative is evil. But he's trying to teach you something, you cut him off. But so far, who do you guys think is winning? I think both of them. I think Jorge specifically is a little more calm. I do think both are calm now, but watch to see if they turn up.
Kind of these implicit agreements, but there is no comprehensive trade framework that's been set out yet.
Well, but it's clear to me that that's what they're trying to work on. You look at the situation with Tesla, right? That the European Union has certain regulatory barriers that doesn't allow Tesla to sell cars in many countries there. So, if those are being lifted, same with meat, sure, they can have regulations on quality. That's fine. But I think there is some regulations that do hurt American companies.
There can be. I mean, we have the WTO for that if we wanted to pursue that. We also can just engage in trade talks and also work on bringing those down. Again, the United States is the largest.
Tariffs is a tool to apply pressure to actually get those things down.
You don't have to.
We do have to. That's what we've been seeing.
We see our wonderful host over here, James. I don't know if he's been on camera before, okay? My guess is James is about 6'4", looks like he can bench 315 in his sleep.
For sure.
Okay? This is a big guy.
Yeah.
Imagine James and I are going to have a one-on-one convo later because James caught me messing around with his wife. I don't know if he's married or husband or non-binary partner, whoever, right?
Yeah, sure.
If James were to tell you, I think I'm going to bring a gun so that I can intimidate Steven, I imagine that we would say to James, you look like you could literally punch kill him.
Right, but
so that's the idea I'm just saying that the United States, that we have such a huge economy. What country is it that we're incapable of negotiating with without?
You're conflating brute force with just incentives. When you mentioned this chips and science, this is a perfect example actually. You mentioned chips and science earlier. Do you know what that legislation was before it was chips and science? Under the Trump administration, it was called the Endless Frontier Act. And that was to provide innovation. It was only chips and science was bipartisan. I think it was Schumer, and I forgot who the Republican individuals were. But that was only economically viable because of the tariffs that Trump had put on China to bring manufacturing back here. A lot of people don't even recognize that, but there has been a precedent for setting incentives, using tariffs as an economic tool to set the correct incentives to align with American interests.
Nah, he's low key cooking right now. He's low key cooking Destiny right now, bro. I'm not gonna lie, he's cooking him because Destiny tried to use an example where a 6'4" guy who could bench 315 was pressing you on talking to his wife, and he brought a weapon. And he said, well, we don't have to bring a weapon. Basically, what Destiny's saying is that the United States is bullying other countries. But what Jorge said was, that's not true. What Trump is doing is providing incentives to other countries to be more fair to us. And an example of this is the Chips and Science Act that will happen under Trump because of tariffs. Granted, I don't know if this is factually, statistically true. But so far in this discussion, I'm not gonna lie, Destiny, you're not winning so far. But what do y'all think?
Only economically, by the way, but also geopolitically. When we see it with immigration, I don't want to talk about immigration right now, but we have seen committals from both Canada and Mexico on that stuff. Whether or not it's been effective, that's a totally different story. But I think there is a utility to tariffs, and I don't think I think you're kind of overstating how catastrophic they've been. There's really no proof that they've been catastrophic.
There's plenty of proof. They are catastrophic. And there's everything about this argument is completely and totally wrong. We have the ability to go to any country that we want and negotiate any deal we want. That's why Trump renegotiated NAFTA to the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement. There was no massive tariffing on both sides in order to bring them to the table. We do not need massive tariffs to bring anybody to the table. We're the United States of America. We can bring anybody to the table by just talking to them. So the idea that
how has that worked the last 20 years? How has that worked the last
pretty well? We tend to win most of our cases we bring to the World Trade Organization. We have trade deals with every country on the planet, basically.
What you see is massive IP theft from China, from places like China.
But IP theft can't be.
Massive.
What do you mean? Sure. Nah, bro. Nah. He said, okay. Destiny said everything you said was wrong, and after he said everything you said was wrong, my ears kind of perked up because I'm like, okay. I don't know if this Chips and Science Act information was right either. I want to know if he's wrong. But Destiny didn't even touch on the Chips and Science Act statement. He didn't even mention it. He said everything you're saying is wrong. Didn't really mention any facts Jorge said. He immediately jumped into the United States can negotiate with anyone. So you just dismissed all he said. You didn't acknowledge it. You just dismissed it. Said the United States can negotiate with anyone. Okay. Jorge brought up an example of us getting IP theft from China. That's what he just brought up. And Destiny just dismissed it again. He said, okay, but come on, bro. You can't just dismiss everything he says. If you're going to do that, it's no point in debating. I'm going to just be honest. It would be different if you were dismissing it with like different facts that contradicted what he was saying. And in that case, it's not really a dismissal. You're just proving him wrong. But what you're doing is saying he's wrong, but not providing contradictory facts that actually prove he's wrong. You can't just say it and go from there, but let's continue.
Drug problems coming on.
IP theft can't be fixed by just broad tariffs.
If you apply pressure to the governments that have that are overseeing their citizens, especially like a totalitarian country like China, there are outcomes that are measurable.
In 4 years, if the issues with China related to IP theft or other comparative advantages aren't eliminated or at least severely reduced, would you think that this was a mistake by Trump?
I would say, look, I'm generally in my libertarian utopian, there's no tariffs. I agree with you on that.
No, I'm not asking. I'm saying that if in 4 years we don't make significant progress with China, would you say this was a failure? We've blown up our trade relations with the rest of the world.
It depends on the metrics that you'd have to consider, right? Like,
okay.
What do you mean? What would warrant significant progress? Is it on the
some sort of bilateral trade agreement that irons out like our agreements on how intellectual property is to be used, maybe?
Yeah, that could be one. Maybe it could be China not taking over Taiwan. I don't know. There could be I think there's geopolitical. You would agree there's geopolitical utility to tariffs?
No,
really, none whatsoever.
Why? I guess it depends how you measure utility. There's the utility in a bomb. I mean,
the utility of pressuring countries so that we get America first geopolitical outcomes. No, really.
That's why none have happened yet, even though we were promised 90 deals in 90 days and we have 0 deals
No, I wouldn't say zero deals. We've gotten massive investments from Taiwan. Actually, Taiwan
we've been always getting investments. That's just a thing. It's a thing that happens. The U.S. economy, CapEx is a thing that's always happening. FDI is always happening.
So you think the Stargate thing is that tariffs hadn't play no effect into Stargate?
What is the Stargate thing?
The Stargate initiative is all the different. It's a list of different companies. I have it on my phone. I just forgot them off the top of my head, but that have made I think it leads up to like hundreds of billions, if not over $1 trillion of investments in the U.S. Economy and domestic economy.
My guess is it's always happening. Like,
oh, really?
FDI is always. Other people are always investing in the United States. Yes, we have a lot of foreign investment here.
Sure, but there's like, I just find it interesting that you bring up something like the chips and science, which is only economically viable because of tariffs.
That's not true. It's economically viable because it's a subsidiary by the government.
It's subsidized by which government?
By the United States government.
China subsidized. The thing is that other countries also subsidize.
No, they don't. Do they? How?
Do you think? What do you mean? Governments subsidize products all the time so that they.
Our government, the CHIPS Act was a $500 billion bill where the money was apportioned from the U.S. budget.
Right, but the manufacturing, what the CHIPS Act did, one of the most notable parts of the CHIPS Act was to bring manufacturing back to the States. And that was only economically possible because of the tariffs, because it was more expensive at that point to do business in China and other places because of tariffs.
I think it had more to do with the fact that there was a massive government subsidy that financially incentivized you to make it in the United States.
I mean, both can be true.
It can be both a little bit, yeah.
Both can be true.
But the CHIPS Act can be hyper-targeted to incentivizing domestic manufacturing without necessarily blowing up a relationship with the rest of the world and without having to do a broad tariff that hurts the entire U.S. market.
I just think that when you frame it as catastrophic, can I paint a picture real quick? Actually, let me just 30 seconds to paint a picture, because you said earlier to one of the other contestants that the domestic policy doesn't match the tariff policy. I actually completely disagree with that. If we imagine three levers.
So if you guys don't know, the CHIPS Act is an act to bring semiconductor manufacturing, or basically all the gadgets in a phone, all that manufacturing, back to the United States. And that is hundreds of billions of dollars worth of money that they're going to be bringing back into the United States. That's what they're talking about here. What Jorge is saying is that this was only possible due to the tariffs, or largely possible due to tariffs. What Destiny is saying is, no, it would have happened anyways without the tariffs. Tariffs this, tariffs that. It would have happened regardless.
Right? And two of them are domestic policy. We have corporate tax and federal income tax, and then one is international, being the tariff. If we reduce the levers on the domestic taxes and we increase tariff, politically, it's actually a huge win. And I think this is the genius of the Trump administration, is that the domestic policy is extremely hard to change. You have to have approval by the Senate. You have to have a bill. It takes years to change. Tariffs, Trump changes it on a fly.
So that's not supposed to be the way that it works. Tariffs are supposed to be changed by Congress.
Do you acknowledge that is the way that it works?
Because he's abusing illegally the system.
Sure,
yes.
But that is the way that it works. Therefore, you can see that the tariff, we might have 50% tariffs on Brazil, which, by the way, is only on certain. There's a bunch of exemptions too there, but those can be turned off on a whim. Same with other countries.
Yeah, but we don't want an economic policy that the lead executive, the president, can turn on and off whenever he wants. Do you understand how catastrophic that is?
It's in pursuit of our America's interests.
But it's not. But we know it's going to be a pursuit of whoever's in office at that particular point in time.
But who's representing America? What is Trump?
No,
Trump
he can't even. He's a lame duck president right now. He can't be elected again. Why do we know he's representing America?
Well, I mean, obviously Trump himself can't be elected again, but.
So why would we trust him with the levers on our economy?
Because we voted for him. He's the chief executive, right?
We didn't vote for it to give him unilateral control of the economy.
But that is just how the mechanic currently works.
Because he's breaking the law, yes.
He is not breaking the law.
He's breaking the law, of course.
What law is he breaking?
The thing that allows him to do that is there's an Emergency Powers Act. I believe it's either the Tariff or the Trade Emergency Powers Act by Congress that allows him to declare a national emergency, which gives him the ability to do tariffs unilaterally. He declared that our trade deficits were national emergencies and that's where he gets the power to tariff the rest of the world. Obviously, that's not the way that law was intended to work.
We can argue about whether or not he's in his right.
Do you think that the president of the United States should be able to unilaterally do economic policy?
Maybe not. Well,
maybe not. We don't have a strong opinion.
Fiscal policy, I think that they have a huge.
No, fiscal comes from the budget set by Congress. No, it's by Congress.
Well, yeah, but it's also the executive.
No, it's by Congress.
So Donald Trump literally did not break the law when it comes to this. He exercised an act that allowed him to give tariffs, and he's giving tariffs. That's not breaking the law. You could argue, though, that he's taking advantage or finding loopholes in the law, but it's not breaking the law. Let me know who you think won this debate. I think it was a good discussion. I honestly do. Destiny's a soldier for sitting down and debating 5 Trump supporters. I'm not gonna hold you. He's a soldier for that. That's kind of gangster. I'm not gonna hold you. But what do you guys think about this? My name is LFR Jojo, and I'll see you on the next one.